This is Later That Same Life, my weekly podcast. I'm Larry Fedoruk, reminding you that you can help support smaller independent podcasters by sharing your favorite episodes with a friend.
Season 3, Chapter 11, Critical Race Theory.
My goal today is to do a short explanation of critical race theory and also offer my opinion. We hear a lot about it lately, and I don't think many people have taken the time to find out what it really means. What is critical race theory, and why is it important to our development? If, after this, you would like to know more, you can read extensively or take a university-level course. I have done one, but not the other. Critical race theory as an academic concept has only been around about 50 years, late 70s, early 80s. And it's not just an American problem. It may seem like an American problem because A, America has a lot of problems, and B, America has the biggest media machinery, and the media monster needs to be fed. It thrives on problems. Big media doesn't just say, we've got a problem. They say, we've got a big problem. Everything is a big problem, to the point where we don't even understand which ones are the big problems and which ones really aren't. Media, the money is in negativity, big problems. But I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, which is more like a large sinkhole, and I don't think we should look at critical race theory as a problem. As a matter of fact, it's more like a solution. Of course, we're programmed to think that for every solution there is a problem, but let's forge on. If you take only one thing away from this podcast, please remember this. The basic tenet of critical race theory is that race is a social construct. Let's rewind that and play it again. The basic tenet of critical race theory is that race is a social construct. Let's rewind that and play it again. The basic tenet. All right, we got it. Race is a social construct. In other words, we made it up. We, humans, made it up. We did. As simple as that concept is, it may be difficult to wrap your head around it. First question, well, what is race? It's not nationality or even ethnicity. It's deeper, at least according to what we've made up over the centuries. I recommend reading more from Nina Jablonski, an anthropologist and paleontologist at Pennsylvania State University. I've also watched some of her lectures and TED Talks. She is known for her research into the evolution of skin color. She says race is understood by most people to be a mixture of physical, behavioral, and cultural attributes, unquote. Race and ethnicity are used to describe human diversity. And we pride ourselves on our diversity, don't we? Well, of course we should, and I'll get more into this later. For now, let me just say that sometimes I think we take so much pride in what makes us diverse that we lack the humility to admit to those things that make us the same. Ethnicity, the professor goes on to say, recognizes the differences between peoples mostly on the basis of language and shared culture. So, as the professor said, race is physical, behavioral, and cultural. And let me add to that, historical. And who writes history? Humans. Humans categorize and write about other humans. History supports the theory that race is just something we made up, and eventually we all agreed on. We agreed that there are different races of human beings. Are there? Are there really? I mean, yeah, we're diverse. Just go around the world. People look, sound, and act different than others. But race? Let me also offer this argument, because it falls into a line of thinking that's been occupying my mind a lot lately. It's not just race. It's almost all made up. What do I mean? Well, what do we know? And I'm going to set aside for the moment the theories that we are all just living in someone else's dream, or that this is some kind of computer game or matrix. Solid arguments, but really, what do we know? There's Earth. It rotates. That is as simple as night and day. It also revolves around the sun. There is a sun, and other planets and stars. We're all in a universe, and there might be many others. The basic principles of the universe, the planet, and the laws of nature, they exist. Everything else we made up. Humankind made it up, even time. Well, we may not have exactly invented time, but how we keep track of it, we made that up. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, millennia. We made all that up. It took us centuries to agree on a calendar, but we made it up for our convenience. Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Make mine a double. Outside of the irrefutable laws, we have invented everything else. Is it that hard to agree that we may have also invented, constructed for our convenience, race? And we've gotten to the point where we barely even refer to it as race anymore. We barely talk about physical, behavioral, and cultural. We simplified it. Let's color code it. Keep it simple, stupid. Even that goes back hundreds of years. You can credit or blame Darwin. Darwin said that the variations of skin color among peoples was the most conspicuous difference. Conspicuous difference. How skin color began to be associated with superiority is another story, a long and complicated one, and I won't really delve into that here in this podcast. Safe to say for now, it did. And today we still treat skin color as the most conspicuous difference. We rarely even refer to race unless we confront racism. Today, race is color. Race is black, white, brown, red, and yellow. There's your races. As Professor Jablonski calls it, the sepia rainbow that is our planet. Black, white, brown, red, and yellow. The last two are actually considered derogatory and offensive. Even as a white person, I can say black and brown, but don't say red or yellow. They are offensive, but really, aren't they all? Think about that. White people aren't actually white. Some of the so-called yellow people are actually whiter than whites. Even very darkly pigmented people aren't really black. Only the browns are accurate, if you think about it. People who call themselves brown people are mostly actually brown. Go figure. No one is red. I don't know how that whole redskin thing got started. Maybe Columbus had conjunctivitis. Everything looked red to him. Conjunctivitis is a bacterial viral eye infection, and they weren't that sanitary back in the day, so maybe he just had an eye disease. He called the Aboriginals redskins, and it stuck. You know, centuries ago, the philosophers, the theologians, intellectuals, all the thinkers, they relied on explorers for their new information. Ah, a red man in the New World, you say. Thank you, Christopher. Plus, we know now that Columbus was kind of a dick anyway. So conceivably, not only did mankind invent race, but we dumbed it down to a color code system for our convenience. And you know, good for the red and yellow people to finally stand up and say, hey, excuse me, we don't care for those terms. Will you stop using them, please? Most complied. The NFL was the longest holdout. Blacks, whites, and browns quite comfortable with the naming system. And I guess the whole color code kind of works. Except for the supreme whites. who ruin it for everyone. As I said, the color code system is centuries old. Darwin, the conspicuous difference. He meant nothing by it, he was just observing. And now it keeps representing race throughout human history. Part of the problem may be this great duality within humans. We have a need to be unique and individual, and we want to be recognized for our uniqueness. But at the same time, we also want to belong. I am me, damn it! Now, who's with me? We have spent millennia dividing ourselves up, and it must have started with race, and that was based largely on the color of your skin. After race, there's ethnicity, language, and culture. But now, let's also add nationality. Furthermore, we tend to divide nationality along the lines of provinces, states, territories. And then after that, cities. And what's the next big divider? Religion. Ooh, that is a big one. Are you Christian, Muslim, Jew, or none of the above? And let's just pick one. Let's say Christian. Okay, are you Catholic or Protestant? Protestant. Okay, well, are you Lutheran, Presbyterian, Baptist, LDS? Let's just keep dividing up the people. What else? Politics, gender preference. But let's not stop there. Let's keep finding our differences. Short, tall, slender, plus size, rich, poor, smart, stupid, introvert or extrovert. Well, it almost never ends. What's also interesting to me, that with all these possible permutations, it's almost impossible to find an individual with a completely unique set of traits. Well, we are about 8 billion people, and we've all become connected now, so you could be a black, French-speaking, Presbyterian fascist living in Japan with weight loss issues since you transgendered, looking for people like you to play competitive chess. Oh yeah, there's your Facebook group. It's got almost 2,000 members. Not to say that social media is bringing us all together, but sometimes it's good to know that there's someone else like you out there. Then, your Apples and BMWs and Nikes will try and figure out how to market to your group. Bonjour, checkmate. Well, at least they're celebrating our similarities in their way by trying to profit from them. Think about that for a second. The largest group of people actually celebrating our similarities are capitalists. I know there are actually a lot of people who preach equality. Some of them even really believe in it. I know I do. But remember the first rule of critical race theory. You never talk about critical race theory. Oh, no, wait, that's Fight Club. Also several schools in Virginia. No, the first tenet is that race is a social construct. We made it up. Another basic tenet of critical race theory is that though individuals can be racist, racism is ingrained in various processes, many of which have become cultural norms, institutional practices, and even in some cases, rules and laws. How does this manifest itself day to day? In our society, we've been taught to celebrate our differences, our diversity. Again, we should. But whether intentionally or not, we have turned those differences into competitive advantages or disadvantages. Superiority versus inferiority. It's in our practice and our language. We think we're encouraging diversity, but in fact, are we promoting division? Sometimes it seems like the system is bent on division. Here's an example. Our Prime Minister in Canada. I know a lot of people really don't like him, but generally, he's considered very liberal, inclusive, kumbaya, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding kind of guy. How did he win his first election? By talking about the middle class, helping the middle class. making sure that those trying to get to the middle class also get some assistance. The whole time pointing out, and did he even realize he was doing this, that we live in a class system, and your best hope, the middle. Aim for the middle. You'll never get way up here with us elites, and we don't want you here anyway because then there'd be less for us. So shoot for the middle. We also support small business, the backbone of the nation. We want you to remain small and in the middle. Here's another one. Many in Canada and the U.S. like to talk about how proud we are of the immigrants who come to our country for a better life. What does this also say? A better life because our country is better than your country. It offers a better life. It's this competitive class system we promote while presenting equality. Hey, maybe socioeconomically, things are better right now here than over there. But this division seems to be stoked by the need to be better. Don't politicize the Olympics. Ever heard that one? Hey, who competes at the Olympics? Athletes, under the banner of a political entity known as a nation. And they even keep track of the medal count. Who's winning more gold? Who is better? If you think we don't encourage division in this society, how many countries are there in the world? 195. How many countries were there in 1950? 102. Would anyone blame the Czechs and the Slovaks for wanting their own republics? Or the Bosnians or Herzegovinians for not wanting to be under the banner of Yugoslavia? Or any of the former SSRs wanting to be their own nation, not under the Soviet flag? Of course not. But then we can't blame Texans for wanting to secede from the Union. Let's fence off Alberta and let them fend for themselves. Many of these differences are from ethnicity, language, and nationality, which then also makes it political. And with that comes patriotism. Patriotism is a strange animal. It's a devotion and vigorous support of your country. But what it's become is not only is my country great, but it's better than yours, which helps create bigger division. Today's political and economic system actually promotes patriotism, nationalism, tribalism, and racism. To summarize, we have spent centuries categorizing the differences among us, and it began with skin color. We know how that happened, and again, if you can watch Nina Jablonski's TED Talk, it's really informative. Millions of years ago, the human race developed around the equator. The equator, and we found this out through NASA, has an abundance of UVB rays, which alter skin pigmentation. But then humans began to move. Let's go north. And over time, those travelers slowly began to lose pigmentation. It's really that simple. What's really more complicated is how we began to attach importance to skin tone. First tenet of critical race theory is that it's a social construct. Tenet 2 is that racism is institutional. 3 says it's embedded. And 4 is that we must listen and understand the experience of those who have suffered under racism, and of course, work to change it. It boggles the mind that some people don't want this taught in schools. Hopefully I've illustrated here how hard we worked at dividing ourselves up instead of highlighting our likeness, and how many of us don't even acknowledge or admit to racism being ingrained in our culture. We've even come up with a more acceptable term for it: racial bias. I might have racial bias, but that doesn't make me a racist, does it? Well, you decide. We invented race and everything associated with it, which means we can reinvent it, build back better. Last word, to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. From the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, August 28, 1963, almost 60 years ago.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.